everyone, and welcome to Wednesday's reading lesson. So, for our starter today, we're going to be thinking about tricky words because in our text, Rumplestiltskin, there are still lots of tricky words in there. Remember, we can't sound tricky words out, and in year one, we just have to know how to read them and write them. So the more we practice, the better we'll get. So, I've been inspired by Mr. Preston. Thank you, Mr. Preston, for this inspiration. So, your first challenge is to have a hunt around your house. So, a word hunt around your house looking for tricky words. So, pause the video now and go and have a little look. See what words you can find. Here's what happened when I did the challenge. So easy, isn't it? They really are everywhere. So I hope you enjoyed that. Now, let's get started on the main part of our reading lesson today. So, remember this week we are retrieving. Let's read the next part of our story. I'm going to read it first and then we can unpick it a little closer together. The years passed, and in her happiness, Lily forgot that she did not much care for babies. She and the prince had a little boy. They called him Tom. Lily also forgot her promise to the goblin, but the goblin did not forget. On Tom's first birthday, he came to the castle and said, "Give me your baby." Lily could not bear to be parted from Tom and offered the goblin gold instead. But the goblin said Tom was the only treasure he wanted. But, as I have told you, Lily was a clever girl. "If I can guess your name, will you let me keep Tom?" she said. "I will give you 3 days," said the goblin, "but you will not win. The child will be mine." Let's read some of it together. Remember, you can mute me if I'm going too slow for you and read it at your own pace. Remember, you can follow the words with your finger. The years passed, and in her happiness, Lily forgot that she did not much care for babies. She and the prince had a little boy. They called him Tom. Lily also forgot her promise to the goblin. But the goblin did not forget. On Tom's first birthday, he came to the castle and said, "Give me your baby." Here are some retrieve questions from the part of the story we've just read. Pause the video now and have a go at answering them. Now I'm going to read the next few pages of our story. This will then form what our activity is for today. Lily set to work. On the first day, she wrote down all the boys' names she had heard of. When the goblin came that evening, she said, "Is your name Adam?" "No," smiled the goblin. "That is not my name." "Is it Ahmed?" asked Lily. "No," smiled the goblin. "That is not my name." Lily tried Akeem and Anton and Hassan and Hans. Each time the goblin said the same thing. "No, that is not my name." On the second day, Lily went to the castle library and wrote down all the boys' names she hadn't heard of. When the goblin came that evening, she said, "Is your name Achilles?" "No," smiled the goblin. "That is not my name." "Is it Axel?" asked Lily. "No," smiled the goblin. "That is not my name." Lily tried Kareem and Casper and Santos and Solomon. Each time the goblin said the same thing. "No, that is not my name." So, our activity for today. Because Lily is trying to guess the goblin's name, our activity today is to see if you can write your name and then think of some adjectives that begin with the same letter. For example, I've done one here. You can do your first name, your second name, or both. It's completely up to you. You might just want to draw a picture. You might want to write a sentence like I have, or you can just write the adjective. Have fun! So, I hope you've enjoyed today's reading lesson. Are you ready for a story? Me too. Now, I wonder, this story is a bit of a twist on a traditional tale you might already know, with a few differences along the way. Come on then, let's share a story together. How the library, not the prince, saved Rapunzel. On the 16th floor of a tall tower block sat Rapunzel, quite idle, while growing her locks. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, please let down your hair," called the milkman from down the road on the bottom stair. "The lift is not working, the stairs are too steep, my asthma is bad and my heart is too weak." But Rapunzel just sat. She didn't move. She had nowhere to go. She had nothing to prove. She just looked at the sky and she dreamed up a dream while the milkman went off in the float to sell cream. It was later that day, much warmer than most, when the postman came round to deliver the post. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, please let down your hair," called the postman from down on the bottom stair. "You've got a brown letter, it looks like a bill. Shall I leave it down here on the window sill?" Rapunzel just sat, she didn't blink. She had nothing to say, she had nothing to think. She looked out at the birds and started to frown, so the postman just left it and went into town. When the sun was full blast, just after lunch, the baker came round, selling warm things to munch. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, please let down your hair," called the baker from down on the bottom stair. "I've got a bad knee, but I'm not one to moan. Let me send up some bread and a hot buttered scone." But Rapunzel just sat, she didn't flinch. She wouldn't move, not even an inch. Not a sound was uttered, not a word was said, so the baker went back to her shop to sell bread. Now, Rapunzel's aunt was the caring sort, and round about 4 some dinner she brought. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, please let down your hair," called her aunt from down on the bottom stair. "I've made a fish pie for you to eat. I've wrapped it in tin foil to keep in the heat." But Rapunzel just sat, she didn't stir. A statue wasn't as still as her. She just watched as the rain began to fall, whilst her aunt dashed off to the bingo hall. Now, this story must have a prince, of course, and he showed up late, but not on a horse. With the wind in his hair and blowing his hooter, along came the prince on the back of a scooter. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, please let down your hair," called the prince from down on the bottom stair. He brought with him chocolate and roses red. He wore leather trousers and shades on his head. But Rapunzel just sat as still as a wall. She didn't think much of her prince at all. She just stared and stared and stared at the rain, and the prince was never seen again. It has to be said, without lunch or dinner, Rapunzel was starting to get a bit thinner. "To leave her without any milk was mean," said the milkman on hearing Rapunzel was lean. "And I should have really delivered that letter." The postman felt guilty and wished she were better. "To think," said her aunt, that she's all alone on the 16th floor, as thin as a bone. Rapunzel has patience. She doesn't move. She has nowhere to go. She has nothing to prove. But to sit on your own all day and dream, well, it's not really good for one's self-esteem. The milkman, the aunt, and all of her friends decided to gather and make their amends. They climbed up the stairs, steady but sure, all the way up to the 16th floor, and burst through the door of Rapunzel's flat, where she sat alone with only her cats. They cooked her some supper, the first in weeks. It brought the roses back to her cheeks. The postman gave her the letter to read, and what happened next you'll hardly believe. Rapunzel leapt up and she shouted with glee, "I've got a new job at the library!" She skipped round the room and she started to groove. She had somewhere to go, she had something to prove. She went to the cupboard and brought out a spanner. Then she fixed the lift in a ladylike manner. "Thank you, dear friends," she said, "I'm all right." So they all took the lift and she turned out the light. The following morning at 6 o'clock sharp, she jumped out of bed whilst it was still dark. She tied up her hair in a very long plait and pinned it all under a bright purple hat. She put on a suit and a pair of smart shoes and ate a big breakfast whilst reading the news. Then she got in the lift and went down, down, down to start her new job at the library in town. Everyone loved her. She sparkled all day, and life at the library continued this way. For along with her hair and ravishing looks, she loved nothing better than reading good books. Now Rapunzel has changed, and it makes her wince to think that she used to just wait for a prince, that she used to just sit, that she didn't move, with nowhere to go and nothing to prove. For now she reads 3 books every night, under the beam of her bedside light. She can tell you the distance to the moon. She can do Scottish dancing and play the bassoon. She can speak in 4 languages, skip and play chess. She can knit tiny egg cups and cross-stitch a dress. She knows the difference between crows and rooks, and all because of library books. So don't just wait for your prince to show. He might turn up, but you never know. Pop down to your library and borrow a book. There's so much to find out if only you look. But don't just sit and wait and stare, when there's much more to life than growing your hair.